can hear me. Okay, so we have some questions here that have been sent in, which is great. Thank you to everyone who has sent questions in. I'll try to address all of these. And then, people are more than welcome to ask questions and make comments in the chat. And that would be great. And then we can, do more questions and things like that there. So a question from Serena: can a type 1 diabetic do the carnivore diet, and are there any issues they should watch out for? They absolutely can. It absolutely benefit them, probably a lot more than other people, because it gives really, really tight control over blood sugar. And so you have very predictable amounts of insulin that you need to take. They'll still most likely need to take insulin, but it's something that when people are on this, their blood sugar is very, very constant, because their body's producing a constant amount, and so they generally only need to get like a low level background dose of insulin, as opposed to dose after dose after dose with every meal, and and larger and larger amounts of background insulin and things like that, depending on what they're doing and when. Now, if they ever went outside carnivore, they would still have to do the same thing, but they wouldn't have to do anything extra. They wouldn't have to do like go above and beyond what they would have before. So if they were to, like, say, drink alcohol, they would need to take some insulin when they did that. Or have some carbs or something like that. But, as long as they stay carnivore, they actually would need a minimal amount of insulin. And so, yeah, it can be very, very good for that. We've actually been using a ketogenic diet since I believe the 1800s, late 1800s, for diabetics, type 1 and type 2. Generally, it was more just type 1 back then. But that was something we've been using for a very long time. To help with that. And there are studies with animal models that are now being attempted in human models, called the fasting mimicking diet, where if you fast for 4 days a month, or use a fasting mimicking diet for 4 days a month minimum, and you can do it more if you want, and get better results. Fasting mimicking diet is just a keto diet. That they're talking about getting into a so-called fasting metabolism, which anybody who's been listening to me knows that I don't think that that's a fasting metabolism. I think that's our main metabolism, our primary metabolism. That's why we get so many benefits from doing that, because we're actually letting our biochemistry work properly. And so they've actually found that people can, or that in these animal models, in these like rats and mice, they're actually regrowing the areas of their pancreas called the beta islet cells that produce insulin, so they can actually start producing insulin again. So we'll see what that happens with in human models and what have you. But it's absolutely okay for type 1 diabetics to do, and it's going to give them all the benefits that everyone else is going to get. Plus, it's going to give them very tight control over their blood sugar and regular amounts of insulin. So the chances of getting hypoglycemic are going to be far reduced. So yeah, I think it's even more important for those individuals to use it. Something that says, in regards to people who are carnivore for a long period of time and have elevated HbA1c, they say, is that because of the optimal diet? Maybe the red blood cells are living past the normal 12-week. That's actually a very good question. Yeah, it may be. I've sort of thought about that. If things are sort of healthier and working better, they're not getting oxidized and damaged. Like red blood cells generally last around 3 months, and then they just sort of get too stiff and craggy and old, and then they get sort of eaten up by your spleen, and that's just sort of what happens. And it could very well be that if your red blood cells are lasting longer, that they'll just be around longer to get their hemoglobin sort of oxidized and glycated a bit more. That's certainly a reasonable question to ask. I don't know if we have any evidence of it one way or the other, but it's certainly interesting thing to think about. And I think it's certainly very plausible. I've been carnivore for a very long time though, and I just had my HbA1c tested, and it's exactly in the good range. So I don't know if other people are doing something slightly different, and that's sort of affecting it as well. But you know, I don't know, and I don't know how high their HbA1c is getting. Like I've never really heard of someone carnivore, especially a long-term carnivore, that has like high HbA1c to the point that they're like pre-diabetic or in the diabetic ranges. But if they were, I would really wonder if they were eating anything else besides just meat, and exactly what they were eating, because that's a bit curious to me. So Tracy asks, I'm on a mostly carnivore diet. Initially, I lost weight, but I'm stalled right now, 6 weeks in. What can I do to kickstart the fat loss? Become all carnivore. Mostly carnivore is generally where people stall because they're stalling on the mostly part. So whatever you're eating besides that, just get rid of it. There are a lot of things that can stall weight loss. Like artificial sweeteners will stall weight loss. Sugar will stall, and carbs will stall weight loss. Even vegetables can stall weight loss, especially ones with lectins. Especially certain lectins can actually bind to your insulin receptors. So even if you're not eating carbohydrates, these lectins can bind to your insulin receptors and give an insulin-like response, and then you'll kick into a fat storage metabolism as opposed to a fat burning metabolism. So whatever you're eating that's mostly carnivore, change it to 100% carnivore, just pure meat and water. Make sure you're eating enough. Make sure you're eating enough fat so that your stools are soft, and you're not drinking coffee, so that that's going to give you a false sense of just normal bowel function. Because if you're drinking coffee, you're eating artificial sweeteners, will stall weight loss, but also they can all give you loose stools, and so you can't really tell if you're getting enough fat, because you normally look at your stools to see that. But if you're moving these things through, because these things are irritants and they pull in osmotic diuresis into your intestines, and it just floods out, obviously things are going to be moving more quickly and in a you know a unnatural sort of way, and so you won't be able to see if you're actually dry and constipated. So I would suggest just doing that, and then and eating enough. You want to eat enough food to stimulate your metabolism. Actually, when you eat more, not overeat, but if you're eating enough that your body wants, and you can eat intuitively if you're eating purely carnivore, then you actually do stimulate your metabolism, because you're telling your body, hey, we've got a lot of energy coming in. We don't have to worry about this. We're not in a famine. We've just killed a mammoth. Times are good, and so your body actually ramps up your metabolism and said, hey, we don't need to hold on to this. We can really, really use all this, and so it's just like, you've just, things are good. You're making a lot of money at work. You got investments. You got all this money coming in. It's just like, yeah, you know what? I may as well buy a boat. It doesn't really matter right now. But then you go into a recession. The economy sucks, and your investments aren't working out, or you don't have them anymore. They've all dried up. You can't just go around running the credit card. Like you're going to get screwed. And so your body knows that, and so it's not going to start spending your savings if you don't have money coming in. So you can think of that as your body's economy, and it being much smarter than most people are. And so if the less you eat, you will actually slow down your basal metabolic rate. Okay, that's something that's well established. And so maybe you can eat so much less that it overcomes the slowing of your metabolism, and so you end up having a net loss in weight, but you're doing it at the sacrifice of your metabolism and your metabolic rate. So I don't actually find that to be a very desirable thing, at least for me. And then you have to keep doing it, because as soon as you start eating to satiety, your body's just like, right, thank God, now we can put on some stores, because the next famine is around the corner. So if you give your body what it needs, eventually it's going to trust you, and it's going to trust that you're not in a famine, and it's going to get you down to a body fat percentage that's more in keeping with what it wants physiologically for times of plenty. Okay. What else? Therefore, red blood cells have more time to accumulate glucose in the cell. From Linda talking about the red blood. Yeah, 100% agree. I think that's very plausible. I don't know if we can. I don't know of any research that says that happens though, but it's certainly a potential thing. And Serena's saying it's easy to overeat on carnivore, undereat on carnivore. It 100% is. Your hunger signals are so different. You just don't feel hungry in the traditional sense. And so you should go by taste. As long as meat tastes good, I think that means you're hungry. Your body wants those nutrients, so it's giving you a positive feedback saying get more of this in you. Okay, and then eventually it'll actually stop. If you have like a big old steak, it will, eventually it'll start out tasting amazing, and then as you go, it'll taste less and less amazing, and then it gets to a point where you're just like, ugh, I'm not really enjoying this, and you'll just naturally want to stop. Why? It's the same steak. It's the same piece of meat cooked at the same time, the same conditions. Why would it taste different? If this is just a chemical response and it's just a one-to-one, it should always taste amazing like that. And you should just overeat, 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 and never stop. But it doesn't. It doesn't do that. And that is a clearly observed phenomenon. When you're eating a bunch of carbs and sugar, you can just keep eating. You compulsively eat because it changes your hunger signals, and you're telling your brain you're starving to death. So, it's a very different mechanism, and so now you don't feel, hungry like you do in the tradition that you normally have, and so you have to make sure that you're getting enough. So I'm just going to adjust this. And Olivia says, and get rid of appetite suppressants like coffee and apple cider vinegar. Yeah, absolutely. You want your body to be able to tell what it wants and what it needs. Okay. Question from Maria. Hi, Doc. I have a question for Wednesday's Patreon. I was reading Dr. Pran Yoganathan's post, Kevin, and he mentioned it is counterproductive to consume high-fat diet and insulin resistance, and also said that today farmed meat is higher in saturated fatty acids compared to our ancestral diet. What are your thoughts on this, please? I think I would have to see the whole thing. Counterproductive to consume high-fat diet and insulin resistance. I don't know if he's ever said that. Well, don't remember saying that. I've spoken. I know Pran pretty well, and we agree on most things. I haven't heard that statement. I'd have to sort of see exactly what it said in that context. But the thing is that eating fat doesn't affect it doesn't affect insulin. So like if it doesn't give an insulin response. So you can eat a ton of fat. It doesn't change your insulin or your blood sugar at all. Like it doesn't have an effect on it. Is our farmed cows fed artificial grains and things like that artificially fat? Yeah, of course they are. But if you look back historically, we would be going after big animals with a lot of fat. That's what we were doing. That was something that Mickey Bendor was talking about in his research and on my podcast when I just interviewed him. I haven't published that yet, but will be in the coming weeks. Super interesting guy. And he was saying we were going after these megafauna. So we had these megafauna that had more fat. And so, these mammoths and these, giant sloths and things like that, which, just couldn't have been hard to hunt. Like a sloth is, just the easiest target in the forest, but like, a giant one, you see that thing coming. And so, they had a lot of fat, and we went for these things because they had a lot of fat. And then all of a sudden you had, when we start having less and less sort of megafauna, that's when you start seeing in the fossil record evidence of cracking open the bones and getting at the marrow because we were getting at this fat. We needed this fat. And we also would go after the prime animals, the ones that were at the prime of their life. They had the best fat content. They were the healthiest. Those are also the best able to defend themselves and to get away. So normally, wolves and lions, they usually go after like the young or the elderly or the sick or the some or the dying. They're easier targets. So they'll go after them. See someone, and then like the stragglers are the ones that are getting caught. Our ancestors were going after like the prime guys, the biggest, the best, the strongest. I mean, they had the best fat content. And that sort of doesn't really make sense. You go after the harder target unless there was something in that harder target that you really desired. And one key difference there is that they had a high fat content. We've always been high fat carnivores. That's pretty clear. And when the megafauna started dying out and we needed to sort of supplement, we weren't getting everything we needed. That's when you actually start seeing agriculture start to kick in, and so it's the domestication of animals and the use of crops. So I think that the evidence is quite clear. We do need more fat than other carnivores, and probably because we haven't been carnivores as long as other carnivores like wolves and lions. Um, and so that's that. I don't think that it's counterproductive to consume a high fat diet in insulin resistance at all. I think that it's perfectly fine. I don't think it's gonna screw with your insulin or your insulin dependency at all. Um, but absolutely, there are farmed meat is definitely going to going to definitely have a higher fat content. Is that a better fat content or not? That's a that's a point of discussion, and they can be raised. I don't know if this makes too much of a difference. I mean, when I eat, it is a different fat composition. That's true, but like just simply, there's going to be a lot more omega 3s in grass fed and finished cows than in grain finished. If you're grain finishing a cow for more than 3 months, you tend to run out of omega 3s, and you generally have omega 6s. So that's something to know about, because you need omega 3s, and you want more omega 3s than omega 6s. You still need omega 6s. They are necessary for life, but you don't want a lot more of them than omega 3s. Okay, so Jordan asks, so what about not being hungry in the morning, but are going to be doing physical activity? Would you force yourself to eat? Would you lean more towards fat, or stick to the sort of 70 to 80% calories from fat? I would never force myself to eat, and certainly not when I was going to be doing a lot of physical activity. I actually feel much better physically when I'm on an empty stomach. So, even when I'm maybe a bit hungry, I would just be like, no, I'm not going to eat. So I always played sports hungry. I was trained hungry, and I perform much better. That sort of thing about it physiologically. You're still in that sort of that fight flight. You need to get out there, you need to use energy to go get a kill, do a hunt, and get some food. Once you eat, you can actually switch into a rest and digest mode, where your body's just mobilizing energy differently. Your body says, hey, let's calm it down, let's take it easy, and let's just rest and digest. And also, you pull a lot of blood to your digestive system to break all this stuff down, and that's and that's a high energy dependent system. So it takes a lot of blood, and that blood's not going to the rest of your tissues. Okay, so I think especially if you're doing a lot of physical activity, I would definitely avoid that. So certainly don't force yourself. I find that I feel much better eating in the evening, just because of that phenomenon. I feel much better during the day, having not eaten anything. I'm much more productive. I have much more energy. I work out a lot harder, even if I haven't eaten all day. And then I eat a big meal, and I'm just like, oh, this feels good. I'm nice, and then I just relax, and I just pass out. If I were to eat a big meal during the day, I tend to be more lethargic during the day, just for that exact reason. And so, especially if I'm doing a lot of physical activity or working out, I find it quite counterproductive to eat. So, especially if you don't want to eat, don't force yourself. How much would I eat? I eat until I'm full. I eat until meat doesn't taste good anymore. If I'm just doing my normal thing, that's once a day, usually about 2 pounds. If it's fatty, if it's more lean, I'll need more than that. If I'm working out a lot, I will just naturally need more food and more calories and more fat and more protein, and so I'll tend to eat twice a day. I could easily double that, so I could eat easily 4 pounds of meat, fatty meat, and sometimes a little more. Um, Depending, and in that case, I tend to stack on muscle pretty easily. Um, so George says he ends up winds up running out of energy, especially outside in the heat. That could be other factors. If you're not drinking enough water, you're getting dehydrated. That can certainly screw with you, especially in the heat. Um, and then also think about if there's anything else in your diet, you know, artificial sweeteners, coffees, anything like that. I think you're probably not in that category. But just think about if there's anything that you can sort of optimize, do that, and then drink a ton more water. Uh, but if you find that you have better energy when you've eaten a little bit, and I would probably stick to a little bit. I probably wouldn't go until you're full. If you find that you do better with that, then do it. That's fine. That's just if that's how you feel better, then do it. Physiologically, it is going to uh, likely be better for most people to not eat anything and not have blood going to your intestines to digest this food and be available to the rest of your tissues. But do what works for you. I would start by 100% pure meat and water. Drink a buttload of water. Cool. From Gabe, what is the max optimal size population for the planet if everyone ate meat? Base limitations of land, meat that would be available, etc. That's an excellent question. I don't think there's anyone that can accurately calculate that, but it's a hell of a lot more than what people think and suggest, especially if we're eating meat. You guys may have watched the one that I did on the video I did on regenerative agriculture that came out and got completely throttled by YouTube because how dare I talk about the environment and cows being good for it. So maybe you didn't see it, but I also interviewed a guy named Dr. Peter Baylorstedt. Super interesting guy, and he's a PhD in forage agronomy and has a degree in animal nutrition as well, which is actually real science. We can't actually do randomized controlled trials where you take genetically identical populations of humans and separate them out into identical situations and change one variable and then study the results over the course of their lifetime. You can do that with animals, and so we can actually do have a really, really strong scientifically based evidence for the nutrition of animals, and so it's actually pretty damn hard evidence. So you got to understand that obviously I've talked about how plants, when you're growing a single crop, you necessarily, or any crop, you have to necessarily destroy an entire ecosystem. You have to you destroy all the plants and animals living in that environment, and then you grow one crop, and then you kill all the animals coming in that are trying to eat that crop, and then you're dumping pesticides and fertilizers, things like that. You get rain that washes it off, gets into the water supply, it just pollutes everything, and it's disgusting. It's really, really bad for the environment. Also, where can you grow crops? You grow crops on arable land, unless you're like in the mountains and the steppe, and you're making those tiered. What do they call it? Christ. Anyway, those tiers that go up like a mountainside, like those rice paddies in steep areas of China or in the Mediterranean, and they look really cool. But it's just trying to get flat damn land to grow some plants on, some rice or some olive trees or something like that. But basically you need to do it on flat arable land. Well, what competes for arable land? It's cities. People want to live there. So farms and cities, cities show up where farms used to be. And as cities and populations expand, farms get bought out, and they build houses on them, and that's how that works. So you have this competition. So if you look at the surface of the earth, and this includes oceans, obviously, 70 something percent of the world's surface is just covered in water. 4% is arable land. Not much. Okay. So cows and livestock don't compete for land on arable land. I mean, you can put them on arable land. You don't have to. Okay. Cows, goats, especially goats, sheep and bison, whatever, they can all go on forest land and rangeland, which you can't grow cities on and you can't grow crops on. Rangeland covers 15% of the Earth's surface. Forest is like 10%, probably possibly vice versa. But anyway, it ends up being about 25% between the two. So in fact, you can run animals on 25% of the Earth, and you can only grow crops on 4% of the Earth, and that's competing with cities. Okay, so it's actually way better to do animals. You have way more land, and the animals help the land. Okay, the animals are recycling these nutrients. They're eating down the dead wood, and they're defecating and uricating, and oh my goodness, even their methane is recycling these nutrients. It's not like they're just creating methane out de novo. It's just appearing out of nowhere. That's recycling of these nutrients that gets back into the atmosphere and is then used again in the life cycle of different plants. So this is actually a really important part of the world. Plants and animals have evolved together in a symbiotic relationship. And like the big grasslands, everything like that, they develop with the big grazing animals like bison and cows and all these sorts of things. And so when you get rid of them, the grasslands die and the prairies die, and the forests and the rangeland, all these things, they start turning into deserts. That's what the Sahara Desert is. That's a man-made desert. That was from improper farming techniques and getting rid of these animals and things like that. And they just turned to dust. And that's what was happening in the middle of America during the Dust Bowl era, when we were doing these farming techniques that just were inappropriate, and they were losing a bunch of topsoil. They get blown away, washed away, all these things. And we lost all our topsoil, and everything was going to hell. And people figured out, like, oh crap, this is from how we're farming and tilling the land improperly. And we're able to sort of curtail that. But that's farming. Cows, livestock, everything like that, much better for the environment. In fact, they're good for the environment, whereas growing crops and destroying the land is bad for the environment. Okay, it's literally that simple. So everything they tell you, in this subject, you just basically reverse it. They're saying that no, we need to go plant-based because that helps the environment. No, we need to go meat-based because that helps the environment. And plants hurt it, and they're saying that animals hurt it. Like, why would animals, who that have always been on Earth, be just all of a sudden bad for the Earth? We're not an alien invasive species that came from a different planet. Like this is we all came here together. And so the thing that's unnatural is farming. Is growing crops. That's unnatural. That's something that didn't happen in nature. Cows don't do that. Lions don't do that. We started doing that very recently. Okay, so that is a difference, that we've made a change in the environment, and we have very serious effects on the environment because of that. Try telling anyone that when you've got $30 trillion in agriculture money coming in every year, paying lobbyists and things like that. Like, good luck with that. Not 30 trillion, but I mean like many trillions. Like the sugar industry alone makes like $1.3 trillion a year gross gross profit. So that's just sugar. So that's what's going on here. So Jamie was saying triglycerides were normal pre-carnivore. Now everything is high except HDL is low. Any advice? Mostly lying for 3 months. Feel great. Very strange. That's literally the opposite of everything I've ever seen. Normally your triglycerides would go down, your HDL would go up. LDL not important. LDL high is actually good as long as you're not damaging it. So generally when you have triglycerides up, it's because you're eating carbohydrates and sugar or alcohol, things like that, and that's screwing with the Randall cycle. But it also, you're damaging, you can be damaging like your LDL cholesterol transporters. So it's uh, very strange. Are you eating high fat? That's something that's important. When you eat more fat and even saturated fat, your LDL cholesterol goes up, which is actually okay, and your HDL cholesterol goes up, which is really okay. So I don't know if you're eating very, very lean, zero carbs, zero cheats. What about your protein to fat ratio, Jamie? High fat. Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. Did you test directly before you started carnivore, or was there a bit of a delay? Like, did you get it just like thing from last year, and then sort of this year you went carnivore, and then you tested, or did you test your cholesterol and everything right before you started carnivore, and now 3 months into carnivore? I think Jamie's typing, but so it could be that blood tests are a snapshot in time, and so you have to um, delay 6 months. Okay, so things are a snapshot in time. When you're looking at your blood test, you get your blood tests here, and then and then there's a 6 month gap, and then you start something new, and then 3 months into that is you're testing it. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that that was that blood test was the same when you started at carnivore, so that could have changed. um, and so that's something to think about. And so either way, I would just test it again, as long as you're saying just pure line diet, everything like that. Just keep doing that, and I would expect that to improve. I had another thing I was going to say. I just lost my train of thought. um, Christ, what was I going to say? Well, whatever it was very pertinent to this discussion. I just want everyone to know that. Um, yeah, but yeah, so I would test that again. I would just basically, oh, that was what it was. Depending on what you eat, depending on what time of day, depending on your exercise level and all these sorts of things, your cholesterol is going to be all over the place. So it's not super accurate, but just try to keep it as consistent as possible. If whatever you did on this last test that you did in the morning, you did it fasting. You're supposed to do it in the morning fasting. Did you work out the day before? Did you work out the day of? All these sorts of things. You want to replicate that, reproduce that. So you want to get it at the same time of day. You want to get it the same fasting status, and you want to and the same exercise status as well. Those are three factors that make a big difference in this. And then just test again in 3 months. A test is only as good as a retest. And so you have to test these things while you're doing the experiment. And so I think if you do that and you have a consistent sort of examination of your cholesterol, which gets very volatile. If you test your cholesterol, 5 times throughout the day, you'll get 5 different results. And whether or not you're fasting, especially if you're not fasting, then it'll just be uh, completely useless. Um, so that's just something to be aware of. So I would just test it again in 3 months, and reproduce those conditions, and make sure that you're fasting for that test, and just take a look. I would be very surprised if it continued to trend in that direction. So that's what I would say. I wouldn't worry too much about it just now, and because it may have been your triglycerides and HDL may have been way off in the worst directions before you went carnivore. We don't know, and so I would just do that, and just be aware of the differences that obviously eating will make in your cholesterol tests results, and also exercise. So try to reproduce those conditions and make sure you're 100% fasting. You get a fasting cholesterol, and at the same time of day that you did it before. Okay, so from Melissa, I've heard others like Amber O'Hearn talk about how we are different from other carnivore animals. They are meant to eat high protein diet. We are lipivores and need a high animal fat diet. Many do best on 80% fat, myself included. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, I would agree on that. And, that's something that, like Mickey Van Dor, Dr. Mickey Van Dor was saying, we haven't been carnivores as much as other animals. And so, we need more fat. We're not as adapted to just getting a lot of protein. Wolves and lions, they can eat very lean. We really can't. And so when we have this relationship with, wolves that now become dogs, we would give them the leaner meats and the organs because they do well on those, and we eat the fattier bits because we need those. Plenty of examples of this. I mean, just look at the Inuits. I mean, they just eat blubber, and you can even look at European populations, living in extreme conditions. These fur trappers and settlers and all these sorts of things. Fat was always very, very important. You're getting milk fat, butter, and lard and all these sorts of things. These were very, very important things out on the prairies. But also with explorers, if you read some of the accounts of Lewis and Clark, traversing across America, and charting it and mapping it. They was very, very clear that if you weren't eating high fat, you were dead. And so like the people that weren't getting enough fat, those were the ones that were dying on the expedition. And so the ones that survived were the ones eating just the fattiest cuts, and they gave the leaner cuts, the leaner bits and the organs to the dogs. And dogs and wolves, they're adapted to that. They can survive on just lean protein and get what they need from that. Like we can't really, and that's just a phenomenon. And for whatever the reason, that seems to be the case. We just need a higher fat content than dogs and cats. We just do. From Crystal. So it's a bit of a longer one, but I'll read it out. I'm wondering about all the supplements I'm taking. Right off the bat, don't take them unless you have like a clear deficiency. I'm 3 weeks in and slowly starting to wean off. Good. I was taking like 10 to 12 pills 3 times a day, along with special powders and tinctures, hoping that they would heal me, stop the inflammation, and restore my energy. It's a good thought, but it's more of a sales pitch than a reality, unfortunately. Unless you're just eating it just like a vegan diet that's just quite deficient in nutrients, then you sort of have to do that. Always adding and stopping different things, the latest and the greatest. Searching for the magic miracle supplement. It's been years and thousands of dollars, and I'm ready to be done. Good for you. I'm so ready to just let meat heal me. I came from a whole food organic diet, no packaged food, but lots of fruit, veggies, and little meat, unfortunately. My immune system is weak. I have a lot of food intolerances. My Hashimoto's has been fluctuating like crazy. I also have the MTHFR gene, which I just think is just hilarious acronym. I was in medical school. I called that the mother effer gene. I'm going to be patient and give my thyroid time. I heard you say 9 months to a year for Hashimoto's. Yeah, I mean Hashimoto's, you will get better. It will help. Your antibodies will start coming down, and your thyroid function will start going up. But it takes longer than other autoimmune issues. I've seen people resolve their Hashimoto's sort of between that 9 months to a year. I think some people take longer. I still do have patients that are sort of over a year and still haven't completely resolved their Hashimoto's. But I've spoken to other doctors that have definitely seen Hashimoto's resolve as well. And so I don't think that's an uncommon thing. So just stay with it. But you'll get improvements all the time anyway. You'll just keep getting better. And so even if you don't 100% resolve your Hashimoto's, in the first few months or even the first year or ever, it will get better and you will be getting better. So, but hoping to stop stop most of the other supplements and just trust strict carnivore and beef diet. I had an immune reaction to pork and chicken recently, so those aren't an option for a while. Yeah, that's something that you hear about with autoimmune sufferers, is that the type of meat matters as well. And so the best you can do is like grass-fed beef, grass-fed red meat, so lamb's fine too, or even mutton, probably better. And chicken, pork, even eggs, especially like egg whites, seem to cause a problem. Egg yolks, not as much, apparently. And certainly dairy is a problem for people with autoimmune. So yeah, I would, for people with autoimmune, especially, I think it's a bit more important to be, on that sort of, red meat and water, to the really optimal side of things. Probably has more to do with what the animal is eating than the actual meat itself, and so, if they're eating their natural diet, it'll probably be fine. But, with farmed animals, they're not eating what they would eat in the wild, really. So this week I cut taking my supplements down to 2 a day and haven't noticed anything negative. I'm thinking next week I'll start by taking them just once a day. Is that okay? Is there anything you recommend still taking while I'm healing? Vitamin D, C, magnesium, selenium, and take high doses of melatonin to sleep. Hopefully I can get off that soon. Anything else I might need? Anything else that might help sleep? I guess I just need reassurance that I don't need to continue taking handfuls of supplements. I just need to trust in me. Yeah, 100%, Crystal. I think that's very important to just to trust and understand that this is what we evolved on. This is biologically, what we need. I don't think you need to take magnesium, selenium, especially not vitamin C, and usually not vitamin D either, unless you actually have an actual, declared deficiency. If you're not getting into the sun and you're not getting enough vitamin D from the meat and the butter and the fat that you're eating, which will get quite a lot from, taking a vitamin D3 supplement, I don't have too much of a problem with that. A lot of them will be in like vegetable oil or a canola oil base or sunflower oil base with a vegetable, gelatin, fake gelatin vegetable capsule, which I would avoid if you can. But at the end, you get sort of drops, vitamin D drops as well, in a different suspension. But you can just get out in the sun. I would encourage you to do that, and you'll get a lot of vitamin D from fat. Butter has a lot of vitamin D. If you react to the milk proteins and things like that in butter because of your autoimmune issues, then you have to go to something else. But like grass-fed tallow should have plenty of vitamin D as well. Magnesium, some people, Australia is just apparently just the soil is just a bit deficient in magnesium, and so it's just most people are deficient in magnesium and zinc, but I'm not. And so it's I've been here for a while. I got tested, so that was what my friend Dr. Rensburg was saying. It's just like everyone is in Australia, unless they supplement, are low in magnesium and zinc. But he's like, but you're not really, And he said that I'm not quite in that perfect optimal range we look at, but according to the normal standard tests and things like that, I was absolutely in a very good range. And so he was quite impressed by that. I honestly, I think you can just stop taking all this crap, just right away. If you're just not getting sun, and you have, and you have to take, vitamin D3, it's not the end of the world. I just don't think you need to take the rest of that crap. High doses of melatonin. I don't know what you mean by high doses. Some melatonin can be helpful. It actually has been shown to help sort of regulate your circadian rhythm and help you produce growth hormone when you're sleeping, give you better, deeper sleep, and sort of kick off that nocturnal hormonal sequence, which is good. There are people that study melatonin. They take, and they're like, well, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, I can't really say, but I take a lot, and to them that was 10 milligrams a night. And they found from their research that seemed to be a good number. Dr. Rensburg commonly prescribes melatonin for people, even just help give them better sleep, but also for that hormonal response. And so quite often be about 3 milligrams a night. If you don't want that and you don't want to take it, then just you don't need to. I would just sort of wean down, and then eventually you don't really need to take it. There are people like I haven't seen his full arguments, but I've seen Dr. Huberman from the Huberman lab. He's a professor of ophthalmology, and and something else, and I think teaches like sort of neurology sort of things at Stanford. So I'm a smart guy, very well educated. He does not like the idea of melatonin. He thinks that's a bad idea. But there's plenty of studies that show that melatonin is actually quite good for a number of different reasons. So I'll have to look into his discussions on that a bit more. But certainly, if you want to come off of that, you can. The good thing about melatonin is it's really not like it doesn't cause a dependency, and it actually can help reset your rhythm. So when people are like jet lagged and they should go from one time zone to another, they can help reset their body clock by taking that. But you don't need to keep taking it. You sort of do it for a few days, and your body's back on that clock, and then you sort of come off of that. So that you can come off pretty quickly. And the supplements, yeah, you can just drop them like a bag of dirt. You just don't need to take that crap. So yeah. Very high fast way to go. So Olivia's saying that she thinks she has magnesium deficiency. If she misses a day, she can get cramps. Yeah, well, potentially. If that's something that's missing in your diet just because of the area that you're in, or you're drinking coffee and caffeine, which can sap your body of magnesium, then yeah, you'll have a deficiency and you'll need to take magnesium. So that is the thing. So if people are drinking coffee or taking caffeine, just be aware that you're going to have artificially low magnesium, and you're also going to dehydrate yourself because obviously caffeine is a diuretic, and so you're going to have that magic combination of lower magnesium than you want, and you're going to be dehydrated, which is a recipe for a lot of cramps. Melissa feels horrible when she doesn't eat fat. Yeah, me too. Yeah, and that's the thing. You need the fat. And Elle says she doesn't get restless legs anymore, which is great. Yeah, that's something that is a bit of annoying. And people are getting like these medications, weird, neurogenic like medications that are like heavy medications just because your legs feel a bit strange at night, and obviously that's a I think it's a big deal to take any sort of medications like that at all. But certainly not if you're having seizures and things like that, you can't stop them with diet. Then yeah, by all means, you get on one of these medications. But I think that's worthwhile because those are very dangerous. But it's a bit concerning when we have to take very heavy medications just for our legs feeling uncomfortable, and that's good that your legs don't feel like that anymore, and you don't have to worry about that. Okay. From Wendy, you replied on Zoom saying the white spots on a kid eating carnivore and fruit was not likely due to the carnivore diet, but could it be oxalate dumping? Maybe. I don't know enough about oxalate dumping to know all the particulars of that. But if the kid's also eating fruit, I would also get rid of the fruit. But and I don't know. I mean, we're talking about a kid hasn't had years and years and years and years and years of storing up a bunch of oxalates and things like that. And you have people that are like 12-year, 15-year vegans that go carnivore and don't have any of the issues with oxalate dumping. So I don't know why some people get it and some people don't. When you would expect someone who's been eating just nothing but oxalates for over a decade, you would imagine that they would dump oxalates, right? So I don't know why some do and some don't. And if a 15-year vegan, maybe it's that the 15-year vegan has sort of gotten more used to the oxalates and been able to process them better. And then the kid is just sort of new to it, but I don't know. It's a hard one. I don't have any clear answer for you on that. But the white spots, you can get white spots for a number of different reasons, and there are a lot of things that happen that still, don't have, direct, cause and effect nature to the things that we eat. So I would just keep an open mind on that. I would get rid of fruit, uh, any any and every day of the week. I would get rid of fruit and just see how he goes on a carnivore diet. And if he's still having these white spots, I mean, are they causing him harm? Is he uncomfortable? Is he sore? Is he sick? Is he having? Are there any other symptoms that are associated with those white spots? Or are they just sort of, just a white spot? If there is, like, I probably wouldn't worry too much about it. If there was some sort of skin changes as well, it could be some sort of indicative of some sort of rash or what have you. Just get it checked out. You have a doctor look at it. White spots can be anything really, and so um, it's important to have someone take a look at it and actually see it and just be like, yeah, that's nothing, or like, maybe we should do something. Maybe we should take a look at this closer, or do a test, or to do a scraping, get a biopsy, and things like that. But I would imagine it's not that big a deal. If he has absolutely no other symptoms, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if they persist, I would definitely get them looked at by a doctor, especially if he has other symptoms along with it, and get rid of the fruit. From Kevin, is morning coffee with thick pouring cream positive or detrimental? If so, why? Well, the cream's fine. Coffee's a plant, and plants are trying to kill you. So, yeah, there are going to be things in coffee. I mean, why do you have to add the cream to it? Because it's bitter as hell, and it doesn't actually taste good objectively. We get used to it, but I think that's sort of like Stockholm syndrome. We start getting, we fall in love with our abuser. Kids do not like the taste of coffee. Like early on, maybe some kids, because they see their parents and they want to look up to them, like, oh, I want to have coffee, and they want that sort of thing. But you give a small child, like like an infant, a bit of coffee. I mean, they'll just be appalled that you made them put that in their mouth. It tastes bad. It's bitter. What does that bitter taste? Your tongue and your brain are sophisticated machines, and they can identify harmful chemicals, and they relay that back to you with negative sensation. This bitter taste is the recognition of harmful chemicals and saying, don't eat this, get this out of you. This is bad for you. That's what bitter taste is. That's why we put sugar in it. That's why we put creamer in it, because it covers up that bitter taste. And so we can get this stuff down. Coffee comes from a bean. A bean is a seed. A seed is a plant's baby, and all organisms protect their babies more than anything. And so that is generally where you'll find a higher concentration of poisons and defense chemicals and things like that. And so, that's true for coffee as well as other beans as well. So, is it going to cause such a detriment that you want to get rid of it? I mean, that's a personal decision. I would suggest just stopping for a month and see how you go, or even just 2 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks is going to be big, because you're going to have, you might have some withdrawals, you might have some headaches and things like that. To give a real good test, I'd just get rid of it for a month and then see how you feel. I feel much better, and a lot of people that I talk to feel a lot better when they ditch coffee. And then if you introduce it back in, like, you'll have a bit of a boost from the caffeine, but it will have you boost up, and then you'll crash, and you'll just feel worse actually after that. So you have to keep taking the drug to keep your body going. I don't feel good when I do that. I feel good for the first bit, and I regret it the rest of the day. And I normally don't get sore after workout at all. I drink coffee, I'm sore for 2 days. So that's something to think about. There are things in there that you don't want. Okay. Tell us how you really feel. Yeah, well, I don't drink coffee, and I feel much better without coffee. So that's how I really feel. From Ganesa, I know everyone's timeline is different when it comes to healing. I'm strict beef, bison, lamb, geese, salt, water, and tallow for September and beyond. Awesome. Is there any way to know how long it may take for my energy to improve, joint fibromyalgia pain to subside? I got some relief from being 98% carnivore, but I desperately need the relief from being 100%. Hence why I've even taking out regular butter and eggs. Everyone is different. You generally do see sort of in the first couple of weeks, first month, a lot of improvement, especially on the inflammation side of things, because you're getting rid of all of these pro-inflammatory things. If you're having these problems, I just get rid of all dairy whatsoever, full stop. And make sure you're getting enough fat. It sounds like you're doing that. But judge it by your stools. If you're having soft stools and everything like that, certainly get rid of all coffee, everything like that. That's going to be, makes me sore after working out. It's going to cause soreness and people that are prone, going to be sore. And then if you have fibromyalgia and joint problems, it's going to just stick on that nidus of inflammation and make it worse. So I think you're doing everything right. You will get good improvement and results even early on within the first sort of month or so, because you're getting rid of all these pro-inflammatory things. So just keep tuning it up and just get rid of all ghee is probably okay. You're getting rid of like the milk proteins and things like that. But if you just use tallow, that might be even a little better. And just keep it up. I mean, it will get better. It does get better. I'm sure it already has gotten better. You're saying that you've gotten some, but you need more. So just stay as strict as you can, and really get rid of all plants and coffee, certainly, artificial sweeteners, definitely, and dairy as well. And you will get better. You'll keep getting better. So just stick with it. If you're not getting all the improvements in the first couple of weeks or months, that's unfortunate, and I'm sorry. But I would expect you to get a lot of improvement in that time, and then things to continue to get better, and then you can start being more physically active. You need to be physically active, especially for joint pain and arthritis as well, because the stronger those muscles are, the better able they are to support that joint, and the less pain you'll experience in that joint. So I have bone-on-bone arthritis on my kneecaps. And that, like, on MRI, it's like there's a bunch of edema and everything like that. It's just like, it's bad. I don't really notice it. It doesn't really bother me. If I'm doing certain things, it does. But I've started, if I would like to sort of squat down on the ground to, like, get at something, if I'm like adjusting something on the operating table, I have to sort of get down very low. That would hurt. That would actually really hurt for a while. But then I started just doing more deeper squats and bodyweight, things like that, and sort of getting my body used to going through all those levels and getting the muscles stronger and supporting me at those levels. It's not a problem anymore, really. And so now I do squats, ass to grass all the way down, even though my patella is this scraping bone, So because the muscles are strong around that and protecting that, I don't experience it as much. And because of what I'm eating, obviously, I don't have all the inflammation. Okay. So Olivia was saying, lately I have to agree. Now I am not caffeine reliant. I see this Stockholm syndrome. So it's good that you got off of that. That's really great. And I think you'll continue to get better and better and feel better and better as you go, and just have better energy levels. I know you work crazy hours and you don't get as much. You probably get less sleep than I do sometimes. So I think honestly, I think getting off the caffeine is actually going to really help you with that and how you feel. So general questions: cramps. Give advice to people having cramps. Make sure they're hydrated, not necessarily go down the electrolytes route. How much water should people be having? How do you tell if you're dehydrated? There's a few ways. If your mouth is a little dry, then you're definitely dehydrated. You can look at skin turgor. It's not as helpful in sort of younger people. But if you sort of look at your skin, you sort of pull that up and let that out. If it doesn't, or like here, that should just snap back, right? If it sort of takes a little longer to go down, you are dehydrated. In fact, you're very dehydrated. And you see that in people they're elderly, sort of pull up their skin like that, and it'll go up, and then it'll sort of up, and then it'll sink down like that. That means they are very dehydrated. So that's a big thing. But I wouldn't expect to see that in sort of younger populations. That's a sort of late stage dehydration, long later on there. But you just drink. If water tastes good and that's the thing. If you're forcing yourself and going, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Well, you probably had enough. I would aim for about 3 liters. That's just, I think that's it's based on nothing, but it's just, I think just this thing is good benchmark. I feel a lot better with over a gallon. I feel best with like 2 gallons a day. That's just me. Especially when I'm being active and in the heat and things like that. I just feel much, much better, have much better energy when I'm doing that. But play with it, and if you're getting cramps, I would definitely say you're not getting enough water that way. And so, and I talked to a lot of people and they were saying, oh yeah, I get these cramps and this thing, I get these headaches. I'm like, oh, how much water are you drinking? Oh, I drink like 600 ml bottles of water a day. I was like, Jesus Christ, it's just like, that's that's like you have to do like ration water. Like if you're in the desert and you're not going to get to come to an oasis for 9 days, that's barely enough to keep you alive almost, So I would, I would just whatever you're doing, if you're having cramps, do more of it. People take a lot of electrolytes and they still have cramps and they're like, oh, what am I doing? I need to take more electrolytes. I'm like, well, first of all, unless you checked your electrolytes and you found that you were wanting in one or the other, did you need to take them at all? Maybe not. But if you're taking electrolytes and you're still getting cramps, well, it's definitely not the electrolytes, right? So up the water. And so, if you're getting cramps, drink water until you stop getting cramps, basically. Hair loss. There's a few more questions. I'll go a little longer just to answer these. If I can, unless I get a call from the hospital, and then I might need to go. Hair loss, a few people experiencing this now. Can you review everything I should check on diet and then next steps? Well, getting bloods done definitely identify where the issue is. Probably not, honestly. I don't know if you're going to be able to get different blood tests that's going to help with hair loss. Hair loss is a bit of a weird one. That's one that sort of cropped up recently. Professor Bart Kay, says that if you don't eat like a big bolus of meat, sort of like one big meal at a time, with high protein, that will sort of transiently bring you up out of ketosis. And this is actually good. And this can help different biochemical processes in your body to transiently come out and then go back in. And he said that one of those things that would be a problem was hair loss. And that you could lose your hair by doing that, which is like, okay, that was news to me. I meant to ask him sort of the mechanism of that, but just sort of didn't get around to it during our last interview. And he had an appointment just after that, so we had to sort of keep it strict to the hour, unfortunately. So that's something to think about. Ken Berry was saying that, he has some things on hair loss as well. But it was more to do with like, if you're eating carbohydrates and having insulin resistance and things like that, that can make people go, prematurely lose their hair. So if you're doing a carnivore, I think this sort of indirectly, but he was saying that, I didn't see exactly what he said, but someone had mentioned that this was something that he said that this was, possibly a transitory thing. So it might happen at first where you're losing weight and you're transitioning over, but that should actually come back. I don't know. I do know from people that I've seen, they've actually had the opposite issue. Like my brother, was starting to have thin hair or thinning hair. He wasn't like, bald or anything. I think like went carnivore and like dude has like hair model hair now. Like it's very impressive, and it's just like, he has the hair that he did, he always actually had good hair, but like now he's got like the hair that he had like as a teenager, dude's in his mid 40s now. And so he has actually much better hair now than he did previously. So, and there can be other things obviously involved. So it's hard to say. It's something that, I don't know enough about. And so I'll have to sort of do some more digging into that. But those are some things that you can address as well anyway. It's just making sure you're getting that big bolus of meat with protein, and that'll transiently bring you out and things like that, and see what that does to help you. And obviously, not eating carbs. Does knuckle cracking cause arthritis or any other issues? Does carnivore help with preventing this? Knuckle cracking. So that's certainly what people say. That's sort of been bandied around. But I mean, that what is that? That's not what chiropractors tell you of releasing air and CO2, and that's nonsense. Of course, it's not. When you pop a balloon, it's the popping, the rupturing of the casing that causes that popping noise, right? Not if you just let it out, without popping, it just pushes out. So that's the same thing. So if you're popping that and that's releasing this air, then that would have to be you'd be popping your joint capsule, which is like a major injury. It causes major ligamentous injury, and I don't see air blebbing to the surface of your skin and things like that. So that's not what's happening. So there's friction. The joints are sort of cracking, crunking next to each other, and then there's a reverberation in sound because of that. Anytime you're increasing the amount of friction and on your joints, you can break them down. That's why I have arthritis on my kneecaps, because I did Muay Thai kickboxing since I was 14, and you did all these knee strikes, and I was a kid, and so I thought it was fun to just like knee and you kick with your shin in Muay Thai, and so I sort of like numbing these things down. I was just kicking the hell out of a bag and people all the time, and so that was sort of easy for me to do, and so it would be just drunk high school kids do stupid things, and I'd just like kick a pole and just wham, like I could do it, and people thought it was like funny and impressive and things like that. So I did stupid things like that. It cost me because you can sort of damage that cartilage, cause micro fractures, and eventually that even that little bit of friction will grow into big friction, and all of a sudden it'll flake away and go away. So that's the theoretical with knuckle cracking, but I think the literature is a bit mixed in that. The literature is not mixed in the fact that chiropractic adjustments of the back and the neck cause harm. That has been pretty well established in the literature. In fact, the number one cause of stroke and stroke-related death in people under 50 worldwide is chiropractic neck adjustments. Okay, and how many countries have chiropractors? Not all that many. Okay, and so this is worldwide now, right? Because you have arteries that go up your neck, and they're actually from C6 all the way up into your brain. You have your vertebral arteries, and they go through in the actual bones of your vertebrae. And so you crack your neck, and you're twisting this. You're getting these shear forces on the arteries, and that can actually tear those arteries, cause what's called a dissection, which is just a tearing of the lining, and all of a sudden it'll clot off because your body's like, shoot, this is bad, and it'll clot off, and you can stroke out. And this is your posterior circulation. So that's like that's the blood supply to your brainstem, which controls your heart and your lungs. You just die like that. So or it can flick off an embolism if it's not, and that can stroke out your brainstem as well. So yeah, so little tangent to the arthritis and the knuckles thing, but I think worth knowing anyway. Personal sort of questions. Are you able to tell us what the title of your book will be? I don't know. I mean, maybe people can sort of give me some suggestions and things like that. I could try, things like, like plants are trying to kill you. It could be, something like that. And there was sort of more to it. One person suggested, going with that, and then, like a doctor's version of this, and I have to look at what it was, but it was actually quite good. It was actually quite a catchy title. And so maybe start with something like that. And, but I want to sort of incorporate somehow the fact that, I'm really making the case that, that the diseases that we're treating nowadays are not diseases, that these are toxicities. And that's what I really want that to be impressed upon people. That's the main reason I'm writing this book. If I could add anyone to Mount Rushmore, who would it be and why? Well, this may, I don't know. I mean, when anything gets political, everyone has very different views. But I think that Ronald Reagan was an absolutely brilliant president, and and he was much maligned in the media, but people don't understand that he was intensely popular. He won 47 states out of 50 in his first election. He won 49 in the second election, and he completely turned around the economy and the the direction and lives of Americans. Before people say anything about him, I think people should go back and actually look at the record and actually look at what he did and actually look at the speeches that he gave and listen to him speak himself. It's the man truly cared about the country, truly cared about people, and really knew his stuff. He really knew his stuff. And so you listen to what he says, the reason he was so popular, the reason he was able to be as successful as he was, because he had Congress and Senate against him his whole presidency, but he was able to actually get things done because he was so on the point, and he would sort of have these presidential addresses, and he would talk about these subjects like, here's the subject, here's the deal, here's the thing, here's why it's important, here's what we need to do about it. And people were like, yeah, damn right we do. Democrats and Republicans, independents, everything. They were just like, yep, that makes sense. And so, their representatives, even on the opposing political aisle, they were like, okay, they begrudgingly went with these things. That's whether or not you agree with all of these things, that's a very impressive political accomplishment. And going from sort of the recessions and depressions, really, of the Carter era of the 70s, and going to a very booming economy and very successful you know time of prosperity. That's a big difference in benefit that he was able to provide. And so, and for a lot of other reasons, winning the Cold War, getting the USSR to fall and to bring down the Berlin Wall. People were saying that, well, Gorbachev, there's some recent thing about Gorbachev, like, oh, he was this wonderful man, he changed the face of the world by dismantling the USSR. I was like, no, he didn't. Like Reagan did. Gorbachev was desperately trying to keep it together. He was desperately trying to keep things going. He was forced into that situation by Reagan, and so that's why I would think that anyway. I have So anyway, that's all of those questions there, and we're probably getting to the point that. Probably need to sort of wrap up. We'll see what some stuff in the comments. I'll have to search some kid pics of Anthony as a child kickboxing. Oh, hey, Dr. Kiltz, how are you, sir? Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming. But yeah, so I don't know if I have too many pictures. Well, I started when I was 14. Kickboxing and things like that. I don't know if I have any pictures of me actually kickboxing. Like this was pre-selfie era, and so we weren't all just taking pictures all the time and posting them on the gram. And so I don't actually think I have any pictures of me when I was actually kickboxing. But of that time period, just being a skinny little kid. But but not actually training. Gonna be ringing. Oh yeah, so Olivia called it. Okay. Yeah. Hey, no worries. Well, good to see you, Dr. Kiltz. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for joining my Patreon. I think that's really awesome. I was very just pleased and impressed and honored that you joined on to mine. So I thank you very, very much. And maybe we can do like a Patreon live together sometime. Well, I learn a lot from you too, Dr. Kiltz. So I really appreciate your work and everything you're doing as well. Oh, awesome. Well, yeah. Well, we should do that then. If people don't know Dr. Robert Kiltz, who I've been on his show and he's been on my show, and I have a huge amount of respect for, has joined the Patreon group with everyone, and so potentially do some of these lives together, or and like something like maybe one of those Zoom lives on Sunday. We'd have him on. That would be awesome. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, guys, it's sort of getting close to 8:30, and I've got to go round at the hospital. Um, but if anyone has any sort of last minute questions that I can answer before, we can try to do that. Send a message, start the conversation. Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Kills. I would love to do that. So let's do that. Um, and Melissa says, you're both amazing doctors. That would be great. Enjoy the interview before. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Melissa. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you very, very much for coming on. I think we're going to do these sort of more regularly. We'll do the Zooms sort of every Sunday that I can, and possibly sometimes Saturday, depending on the week and my work. Um, but so that might change around. But I'm looking to do Sunday mornings in Perth, which will be Saturday afternoon, evening in America. And I'll try to do that regularly. And then I'll try to do, and that'll be for sort of tier 2 and above. And then you can sort of come on and interact, and we can ask questions and talk a little bit more. And then we do these YouTube lives as well. During the week, I'll try to do these. I'll try to do these weekly as much as I can, sort of midway during the week, and we'll go from there. And obviously, any sort of suggestions or recommendations that you guys have to help me improve this and help you guys get the most out of it, I would really appreciate. So just DM me in Patreon and let me know, or discuss it on Discord. Olivia is very active on there, and thankfully, really helps me out with that, and I really appreciate that. And so if people join that Discord group, that is a place where you can talk about things. You can talk about how to best improve things. You can let me know and just let everyone know, Olivia know, what you think would be better and help improve things, and what would be better ways and directions to go. So if you guys wanted to do that, we have a Discord community set up where people can sort of chat and talk about these things. And just let me know what you guys think. And thank you all for coming on and submitting questions. And I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully people enjoy the tape as well. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you guys later.